Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you very much for coming down to this evening's talk entitled Shaping Futures Through Education and Mentoring. Naturally, as the title suggests, the focus is on mentoring and education, and in particular with the backdrop of our sort of one of our projects that we've been running for now for 17 years, certainly I think the longest standing project is the Saturday School. Just in terms of the school itself, I think it was primarily set up as an educational initiative to raise educational standards. But I think what necessarily evolved from that, and especially as the school grew and we had older children, or children staying to an older age, is that there was almost an element of mentoring that took place as the relationship grew between the teachers and the students. And as the students started to think about their futures and exploring what potential careers they could have, they obviously, they had a natural pool in the form of the teaching cohort. So I think that kind of grew out of it. And within the school we then started to focus on certain aspects such as careers-focused initiatives, as well as other projects to sort of develop the skills of the student base. But the focus today is obviously on the mentoring aspect particularly, and the focus on how that's had an impact on, in this case, obviously through particular students, their lives going forward and their experiences, but also hopefully a chance to explore how that can maybe, be in affecting other children. It is obviously an opportunity for you to find out more of the school if you're not already involved. I think what's also interesting is I've kind of now, for a few years, I've been always doing various events as sort of the 2-minute pitch about Saturday School. And often what we say is, well, anyone who's interested, there are a few teachers you can have a word with. I think what's a unique opportunity today is that we've actually got some of the students who have been through a range of the years who are involved. So, and I think that's almost, partly actually can be an equally interesting insight and potentially why it's such a rewarding project. We've obviously got the 3 speakers who I'll introduce here, but I can see a few faces of some former students who are here as well in the audience. So certainly afterwards it'll be a good opportunity to catch up with them and find out more about the project. Moving on to our actually 3 speakers we're joined with, and who I've had the pleasure of sort of interacting with in the school, if not directly teaching, certainly telling them off probably at some point. But first speaker is Salahuddin Mazari. And actually, before I sort of go through each of them, what's interesting is that each of them almost are representatives of their families. Who, so we've had, I know certainly several generations, or several, not generations, but several, probably going back, although I don't know, is your father in the school? Several of the siblings of the Mazari family, I think, certainly your older brothers, your sister, did Hamza come as well? No. So everyone's come. Anissa, I know your sister Mona was actually in Safia's year group, and then Maryam, your elder sister, was one. I've certainly taught her, and she was one of the first students I taught as well as Khadija, and then your brother Muhammad as well. So that in itself hopefully is some kind of testimony to the school, and obviously there's Eamon's here as well with his sister. So there's their family have also well represented. But Salahuddin he was one of the students. He was at the school from year 5 to year 10, and he went on to SOAS and King's College to study history and geography. He's now been involved in quite a few community and active community projects and activism. He's been involved quite a lot with Charity Made in Europe as well, and a lot of the environmental work they do. And in particular, I think now he's actually trying to focus on setting up a Muslim fashion blog as well, which he'll touch upon as well. So thank you very much for coming. Our second speaker is Anissa Nachit, whose background is architecture. She was with the Saturday School, and she went on to study architecture at Oxford Brookes University. She did some work as a 3D designer, and is now currently studying her Masters in Holland as well. What's interesting, she was also involved actually with the Quranic pop-up book, The Story of the Elephant, by Shade 7. So Hajra was one of the speakers we had, I think, last year when we did the entrepreneurship and crowdfunding event. So she's obviously been involved with that as well. And then Safia, our third speaker, was involved with Saturday School from ages of 10 to 17. And she actually came after she sort of left school. While she was at university, she taught for a few years at the school as well, which was fantastic. And she studied her undergraduate in biomedical sciences, and then is now taking part in numeracy in global mental health as well. So a range of backgrounds, from effectively humanities to sort of the more practical sciences to then science in itself, pure sciences. Just housekeeping points, so as always we've got our Twitter handles, the City Circle, and we've got hashtag CC Talks as well. If you do want to tweet during the event or otherwise afterwards, if you want to make a comment, it's always welcome. But without further ado, I will pass over to the person. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum and greetings to you all. Thank you for coming. What I'm going to say, following what I'm going to say, is not something that I've been paid to say. It's something that's truly going to be coming out of my heart. So the first thing, I guess, about Saturday school, it gave me some of the best role models you could ask for. So the Saturday school teachers were not just people who were successful in their respective careers, whether it was the corporate world or banking or law. They were also role models in terms of religion. So they were people who managed to balance the demands of the working life and the demands of being Muslims. And for somebody who's young and looking for role models, that's exactly the type of people you need. And I'll mention a few names if people don't mind. So I remember there's a couple of teachers like Jibril, Yusuf and Arsalan over here. They were not just successful corporate people, but they were leading our Islamic studies, and they blew my mind intellectually and academically and also Islamically. And then there was this whole idea of mentorship. And there's one teacher who stayed with me for 5 years, and in a sense she became like my second mum, I would say. Her name was Sabah Bahalib, and I think she's the PwC Muslim Network head at the moment. And anyway, she was like not just a teacher, she was a mentor. She advised me in Saturday school hours and outside Saturday school hours. And that relationship continued well beyond Saturday school. I remember when I was fundraising 10,000 for like a Syria project, I hadn't been in contact with her for like 5 years, and then she just found me somehow and donated like £100 to my project, and she wrote on the message, I remember, like, "Boo, I'm here." "Boo, I'm here, like, let's meet up." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do that." And then we ended up, she was like helping me with things like job applications to get into like certain corporate companies and everything. And she and one way you really know how somebody cares, like well beyond Saturday school, if they care enough to tell you off if you're going wrong. And at that time I was going wrong coming outside of graduation, not being very focused the way I was searching for my job, and she kind of pulled me back and reined me in, and I'm really grateful for that. And then also, I think another really, really important thing is how Saturday school really helped my family. I wasn't just the sole beneficiary of Saturday school, it was also my siblings. And I'd like to share a story. So a few years ago, my sister Hiba, she became the first student to go to Oxford amongst Saturday school students. And in that year, owing also to Saturday school as well as her hard work, she achieved 10 A stars. And she achieved the highest grade in the whole of Kensington and Chelsea Borough. And that was much to do in part with some of the mentorship and some of the extra hours that Saturday school teachers would give to their students. And in many cases, the Saturday school teachers were not just people who were involved 10 years ago in my life in some distant past. No, they're still involved in my future to this very day. And I remember 4 or 5 years ago, I was out in Malaysia and Singapore. I was doing an internship. And I went to Singapore and I ran into Andaleen Razak and Mansoor Ahmed. And I got to meet their children. And I still have relationships with other teachers. So a couple of times I've babysat some of their kids. And and it's amazing how they looked after me when I was children. And now now they're hoping for me to be a role model to their children. So it's really interesting in that sense. Also, I think what was the single most powerful thing about Saturday school is how the teachers in Saturday school exemplified the ideal of a teacher in many spiritual walks, many spiritual kind of paths, such as Sufism. So how I saw the teacher not as somebody who gave me their vision of life, but somebody who unlocked that potential within me to discover what I was truly good at, and they just opened the door. Like every child has that. Every child is talented and gifted, but they don't always have the means to unlock that. And sometimes a teacher at a critical age, from when you're in year 5 to year 10, can really open that door for you. And it's almost like, I almost compare my situation, how I was, my relationship with Sabah and me, it was like almost like a Dumbledore Harry Potter type of relationship, in the sense that Harry always, he never knew his real potential, and it took somebody like Albus Dumbledore to really open that up. And that's like, I see all of you as, if you don't mind me saying, I always see, like, whoever reads Harry Potter, all of you as like Dumbledores and Minerva McGonagalls helping the Harry Potters and the Hermiones and the Rons. And that's, I think, something, coming from me, that is an incredible, I hope you take that as a compliment. What I've been doing outside Saturday school. So Saturday school gave me that confidence and that independence to apply for the best of what I was capable of. So because of the discipline and the kind of the daring to achieve the best, so I got into King's and SOAS, and I studied history and geography, and then I got 2-1, and now I've been involved in MAID, which is an organisation which campaigns on global issues of global injustice and poverty, such as global warming. So I've been involved. So I was recently, a month and a half ago now, we were in Paris, and we were one of the first Muslim delegations to represent at the climate change marches. And that was an incredible experience. And now, at the moment, I'm setting up a blog which celebrates Muslim cultures through the medium of men's fashion, which touches upon my travels across the Muslim world and my various experiences. And it's also like a positive way in a climate where Muslims are being stigmatized at every single juncture of life, to allow people in the mainstream to connect with us, whether it's through fashion, through food, through clothing. And that's one of my passions that I'm working on. And my mentor's actually in the audience somewhere. Zindia, she's over there in the blue hijab. So shout out to her, and shout out to Shahraz, my colleague from MAID. I guess just to wrap up, what Saturday school teachers do give to their students. First, they unlock that potential from within. And a lot of students people who are from really deprived social, economic background, they give them that vision to dare to dream, to dare to be big, to not be mediocre and not to be stifled by your circumstances. And that is one of the most powerful things you can give to a child and to give to a teenager. Another thing, just give somebody independence. Because in some cases, what teachers don't do properly in some schools, they either spoon feed you or they don't help you. Whereas in Saturday school, I found those like a perfect balance of giving you like resources, time and investment, but also challenging you to be independent and apply for things like jobs for yourself. And they'll read over your application, but like make you do the work yourself. And also just the last thing I will say is Saturday school teachers, they'll never just be with you those 5 years that you were there at Saturday school. They're going to be with you for the rest of your life. And I can really testify to that. And there's still Saturday school teachers to this day who I have very strong contact with, and they're almost like family to me. And inshallah, at one stage of my life, when things have settled down a bit, I'd like to give back to the Saturday school. I'd like to also shape young minds and see like 10, 15 years down the line, somebody talking about how I influenced their life.
Now, passing on to Anisa, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I just want to say it's really nice to see some of the teachers I recognise here. I do feel a bit old, but I don't know how you guys feel because I'm not from here. But so I went to Saturday school when I was about 14 and left around about 18. And one of the things I was telling Arsalan earlier is how I used to take 3 buses to get there from North London with Sophia's family as well, which for me sort of shows the pure dedication, how much I loved going there. And as Salahuddin was saying, the teachers for me were real role models, especially at the beginning when you're 14 and 15, because when you're at school, your teachers are just teachers, but when you were able to go to Saturday school, you could really meet young professionals, and it gave you an insight to that working world. And especially for me, because I was the eldest in my family and the first to go to university, there was no one I could sort of talk to about that. And so for me, just to be able to speak to teachers, they could give me an insight into that working world, an insight to university, and sort of get me up and geared about it, and give me that motivation to work a lot harder for that. And what was, for me, I really believe that the reason why I was able to go into architecture is because I was able to meet teachers who knew other professionals about architecture, give me an insight to that. And I was able to meet one particular teacher called Sarah Khaled, and she was also an architect. So I remember spending many evenings after school talking to her about it, so I could try and formulate my ideas and why I wanted to do architecture, and just to hear opinions on that was really beautiful for me. And one of the things that really struck me was this mentorship and this role models, because you really had people that you could look up to and push you, especially because I did maths there, and that really helped me with my confidence in that, and I could go back to school and have that extra support, especially because my parents couldn't obviously afford for me to have private tuition, so to offer that a place for students who really want to do well for themselves but have something lacking or some confidence was really a wonderful opportunity in that case. And what I also really liked was, which I loved going, and Shayma used to run them as well, was Islamic Studies. And for me that was really, really beautiful, because I remember it was an opportunity where students could come together and have such an open, healthy discussion about Islamic issues, especially when you're like around those teenage years and people are starting to ask you questions about your religion. And so it all gave you a platform where you could just throw out all these questions and have these discussions amongst your teachers, but also amongst your peers. And just to have an opportunity, a place of gathering, I think that's really, really important as a development for young adolescents. And I remember, I don't know if Shayna remembers this, but I remember when I was about 17, I went up to her and I said, I just wanted to be like you. I really, really remember that. I sort of really looked up to my teachers in that way. The confidence was a really important thing which the school gave me, and the mentorship, and really the teachers weren't there just to just lead, your teachers were there, they helped you through them, I could email them, and any questions that I had throughout the week, I could sort of really have a relationship with them, and that was really, really important, because you have such an intimate relationship with these teachers that you wouldn't have at school, and to be able to see them as your role models, and professionally, but also in an Islamic way, that was really, really wonderful and very important for me as a development in my case. And also just to have the relationship outside when you leave for uni really helped me in my development throughout the years. So I had a wonderful opportunity after I had finished my bachelor's. And I remember it was 2012 and there weren't many jobs going out there, so I sort of received many rejection letters after rejection letters for job offers. So I started to think, right, I'm just going to fill up my time with skills and keep myself occupied with courses. And I remember that City Circle had an event happening, which was a photography course that they were running in Al Manar. And obviously I hadn't been there back in a couple of years, so I thought, right, that's what I'm going to do, it's going to be wonderful. And I went there, did a course, and I had the opportunity to exhibit some work at an evening at the V&A. And because of that event, I was introduced to a lady called Hijay Mamun, which Arsalan just mentioned, and I had an opportunity to become the illustrator for the first children's Quran pop-up book. And from there, it was a really nice opportunity to work with people within that circle, because they help you get into that professional world, and I was able to sort of push my creativity in different directions and sort of be okay with the fact that I wasn't able to get to where I wanted to. And then, everything's written in that way, because I was able to get a job after that, and I was working alongside in that way, and I was able to freelance other projects in the design world. And just being connected to my teachers in that way really helped me. And I would completely agree with Sohadina. Inshallah, when I finish my masters in the Netherlands and I could come back to London, I would definitely come back and teach, because just the opportunity to have that relationship with the children, really, it does more than what you think, because we all look up to you in this way, and you really are role models to these children, and they just sort of admire you in that way, and you sort of set a pathway up for them. So I would love to be able to give that back to a child, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Now moving on to Safia, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I was a student at the school from the ages of about 10 to 17, so I was there for quite a while as well. And I only stopped because they didn't offer my examination board for maths, because I was doing a completely different one to everyone in the class. But I wasn't ready to leave the school yet, basically, because it kind of becomes like a family. I've been there for so long, it's like I grew up, and a lot of the teachers that are here have seen me grow up, which is a bit weird. But it's basically becomes like a family. And so when I went back there to teach, at first I was just a bit okay, wow, a few months ago I was the one sitting on the table, and now I'm in the canteen with the teachers at lunchtime. And then it would just be all of everyone else who's still studying, they'd be so what's going on? What are the teachers saying? And I'm just oh, well, I can't really say that. But it was just me. I was teaching the younger years, so I taught years 4 and 5 whilst I was there. And because I didn't really want to go into anything too advanced. But it was really nice because it wasn't me by myself. Usually you're with one other teacher or 2 other teachers sometimes, because then it helps you alternate. If something comes up and you take a day off, there's someone there to back you up. And it also helps when it comes to helping the students. And that's one thing I really felt, whilst I was there as a student and a teacher, having that extra support. And because the classes aren't as big as a standard school, and you've got the extra help there, it means that you can really help out the students that struggle and that maybe would otherwise in their normal schools would get ignored. So if there was a student, for example, who really struggled with reading, one of us could take them out to a different classroom and then just go through reading with them. Yeah, so we just be able to offer that one-on-one if it ever needed to happen. So especially I felt being able to do that with students at a young age, and to be able to help them and instill that confidence in them at that young age. So maybe I thought it would be able to help them further on in education.
No, you carry.
But whilst I was there as a student, as the other 2 have mentioned, it's not just your standard teacher-student relationship. Because of the fact that you're not in that kind of rigid school structure, and it's more of a one-on-one, you can get more advice. So with my personal statement for university, I sent it to I think it's Shingma, I sent it to Ramiz, I sent so many to him. Ramiz has been my reference for every single job I've ever applied for. So he's helped out with a lot of stuff. I think Mona as well, just someone else who's in my year, and Anissa's younger sister, she just always uses Ramiz. And my oldest sister still uses Arslan as a reference. It's I don't think they ask anymore, they just put it on and you just yeah, okay. But it's it stays with you, and they email and they check up on you and say, oh, what's going on, what are you doing now, you're graduating about now, what are your plans and stuff, and they really check up on you, and they actually care. It's not okay, he'll go and see you, but they keep up that relationship. And whilst I was at the school, they provided me with so many other opportunities. So when I was in, I know it was 2010, I think. When did we do the first charity?
Yeah, the first one was, I think it was 2010 actually, yeah.
It was, I think.
Yeah.
It was when you just all done your GCSEs, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was that year, yeah.
Yeah, so we got the opportunity to take part in a charity dinner to raise money for the Citizens Foundation, which basically funds schools in Pakistan to provide education for children there. So we got to take part in the charity dinner, like other peers in my year, and we basically hosted it. And it was just it was a great experience. And there was like an auction, and we didn't do the auction, Ish did the auction, but it was a really nice experience. And the fact that we were able to help underprivileged students who otherwise wouldn't have been able to access that kind of education. And I remember so clearly, like, us learning about that charity and the work that they did, and just being able to do that. Like, I wouldn't have been able to do that experience if I hadn't been in the City Circle Saturday School. And then a few years later, we managed to do it again. So it was like twice, and I think we funded the school for a year.
I think 3
It
years.
was 3 years, I think,
Oh,
altogether,
okay,
because
3 years.
I think we raised more than needed in the first year, so 3 years altogether, I think, 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah, so be able to know that we'd helped fund that, and it's all owed to the City Circle, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to do that. And they helped us out so much, and they helped us out with inviting guests, because we were like 16, 17, our social circles weren't that big. So they helped us out a lot with inviting people, advising us on how to we had to create all these flyers and posters and stuff like that to draw attention. And it was just to reiterate, it's just something that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And they also offered workshops at the school where they bring in people to talk. So I remember clearly there being a careers day, and they brought in loads of different people from different professions. And I think from a young age I was always interested in the sciences. And when you're interested in the sciences and you want to help people, the most obvious thing to go into is medicine. And obviously your parents are very proud to hear that, but it wasn't I wasn't 100% sure that was what I wanted to do. And I went to that careers day, and I remember there was a woman, I can't remember her name, but she was a doctor, and she was just saying there are so many other things you can do. You can go into research, you can become a scientist, go into policy, stuff like that. And it just helped instill in me that, there aren't these really narrow set paths that you have to go on, the generic routes, that you can branch out a bit and explore more in what you want to do with your life. So, and they didn't really, it's at school, it's they offer it, but it's not, you don't have that one-on-one opportunity, because there's just so many people, and you'll have other students who will just hold the speaker for the entire time, and you're just okay, well, I can't really talk to them now. But at Saturday School, because you're already exposed to your teachers who are from a range of different professions, and then they bring in other people from different professions, so you just get to have the opportunity to meet so many different people that you wouldn't otherwise meet at that age. And it just opens your mind up to what is out there for you, so that from a young age you're already thinking, I don't have to go down these generic pathways that everyone tells you to go down. I can think outside the box and do what I actually really want to do. And they help you along with that. So thank you to the City Circle Saturday School.